We're at Future Chat here.
Hmm.
It's time to have a little bit of fun. So why don't you sit back, relax, and unwind with Future Chat?
But what we do at the beginning isn't even a sync clap because we're not actually clapping at the same time.
No, it's just melodic.
I don't know what to say.
Hmm. Hmm. If
Can you
this
have like,
feels,
can you have remote timing units?
yes, like an atomic clock that we each have.
I guess, or just even sync to UTC or something.
Well, do you mean sync to UTC or do you mean sync to like
Like
an atomic standard?
sync to each other to set our recording time.
I think it makes more sense to use there's an atomic clock in Ottawa that Canada uses as the standard time. We should all just set our clocks to that, which I
Classic
believe
Eastern bias, am I right?
our
Jeez.
phones do. They set a standard my watch doesn't. I don't have to set my watch, my Apple Watch, because it's constantly checking with servers to synchronize its time.
Maybe we want to check with Colorado, Rob.
I mean, you can do that.
Yeah, we can. Maybe we
Yeah.
will.
Okay.
I feel like you don't understand what I'm trying to say still.
Okay.
We had a conversation before about how professional recording uses central single time sources so that you don't have to do any sort of coordinated start and stop or
Right.
sync claps, right? Could you do the same for the three of us, even though we're in different places? Because you said they're all plugged into the same thing. Do they have remote things where like the recording timestamps are set by a single device so that I can jump in and out of recording and the timestamps will still match up with your guys's?
Like, are you describing one physical device that like I come to my computer and calibrate the exact time, and then I bring that to you and then use to calibrate your computer's exact time?
No, it has nothing to do with computer time. I'm talking about recording timestamps.
You mean like with the fact that I start at 10:30 and you guys start at 8:30?
No, oh my gosh. Okay, right now we have to go 3, 2, 1 record, right? With this device, in theory, we could all just start recording whenever.
Yeah.
So basically, as soon as one person starts recording, it starts going, right?
Mhm.
And then if another person jumps in and starts recording, it takes on the time of whatever that central device says the timestamp is.
Okay. So is it metadata that's embedded in the audio that has this timestamp? Like, where's the time recorded?
It's not being recorded anywhere.
No,
It's just being logged by one source.
I'm just
'Cause right-
curious, once I get all the files, how do I sync them up?
Well, I don't know. That's for you to figure out.
You shouldn't have to, is the thing, is it?
Yeah, ideally, just the gaps where you're not recording is just dead air. Like, so it should all just start.
Okay, so what you're describing right now is something that I think other podcasts use for broadcasting audio streams live, which is like an IceCast server. Like you set up a specific
Server would work, I think. Yeah.
And if it's not broadcasting anything, it's still the server's still online.
Right.
There's just no recording stream going through it.
I guess. Sure. Yeah, and it's just taking in whatever streams are coming to it.
Right, but that doesn't help with like the whole reason we reach record individually is so that we have the local file. The only way you could do that is what some startups, like there's a couple startups that do this where I think one's called Cast, where you log in to their interface and it records you the whole time and it streams a full res file. Resolution isn't the right word, but I guess it kind of is.
Fidelity.
Yeah, it is still resolution. It's just audio resolution.
Right.
But it streams a copy of each person's audio to the server so that like 20 minutes or something after the recording is done, it has full fidelity audio on the server. And then you can just edit from there. But it keeps track of all the times.
And it corrects for latency?
Right. Well, in theory, but I don't know how often it checks that.
Sure.
But so we could do that, but
I was just
like a
curious.
lot. Yeah.
Passing thought. I mean, our coordinated start and clap seems to work. So
Yeah.
why fix what's not broken?
No.
How's my feed?
Seems fine.
Okay.
Better than usual, which jinxes it.
I say it's as bad as usual, but
Well, okay. How is that different? The same as usual in bad.
you said as fine as usual.
Yeah.
Or as good. No, I think you said as good as usual.
We have to keep in mind that Nick's webcam is just integrated into his laptop, which is very old. So
What does that have to do with his latency?
This is Kaya's laptop on a wired connection. That's why I ask.
Oh, see, I think it's better
Oh.
than Nick's usual.
Okay.
Well, that's just placebo effect, Rob, because now you're given additional information to affect your judgment.
You guys just let me know, and I will turn off the camera to my beautiful, beautiful face whenever you need me to.
It's actually started getting better since I first came on.
Now you want to talk about placebos?
No, I'm serious. It's not jittery anymore.
Mike, at the beginning when he first asked, I said it looks as good as usual.
I know. Up until that point, it was bad.
Oh my gosh. Up until I found out the connection was wired, I thought it was terrible.
That's not what I mean.
Did we ever explain to our listeners how the format of this show is adapting and evolving?
I don't know why we would.
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Okay, then never mind, listeners. Good luck. I'm
Send your questions to unwindmedia at
unwindmedia/creedthoughts.org.
You could have either just stopped. If you had stopped after Unwind Media, it would have been correct for Twitter. The fact that you kept going made it wrong.
Unwindmedia at unwindmedia.com/creedthoughts.
Can you please make that domain?
That's not a domain, though.
Oh, man. URL?
I could make unwindmedia.com/creedthoughts.
Okay. I'll accept that. That'll be where I finally import my blog.
We actually, if you want to use unwindmedia.com/nickthoughts, that is available.
Oh, all right. Duly noted.
We have no follow-up this week, so I just want to jump right into the first topic that I see on this list here. And because I think I have some interesting stories to tell about it. And Mike, you want to know how we commute.
I do want to know that. I guess it's not specific commuting in the conventional sense of getting to and from work, because I think that's how a lot of people interpret commute. I guess like how we get around.
I think that's how the definition of commute works.
Yeah, I think that's what commutes are.
But you can commute to a place that's not work, can't you?
You're probably right.
Let's
see what Google has to say on the subject.
Literally exactly what I was talking about. The conventional sense being to and from work. I'm saying just more in a general sense, because the reason this came up is due to a recent adventure I had that was related to the tuxedo and thoughtful gift topic that we brought up before.
Google says work.
Does it?
Yep.
Is it slang or?
Nope.
No, it's just okay. So I guess I meant also how we get around, maybe not commuting.
It also comes from mathematics.
Yes, commutative. Yes, indeed.
Is that what I want to say here? Is that the dictionary says it has to do with work, but
yeah,
I'm willing to talk about how we get around.
Me too.
That's
Both.
What I meant. Yeah. So I had an experience. I guess it was my second experience. My first one being in Ottawa, of using Uber, and the reason I had to use Uber was because I caught the last train out of downtown to catch the last bus from the train station to my house, and I missed the bus.
Okay. You did not make your connection.
No. Well, I mean, if I should have. I was standing at the stop.
I was going to say, I've heard this story, and I don't think Mike's really to blame here.
No, I'm not saying he's to blame. I'm saying like when you fly and you're going to you have two individual flights, you can miss your connection through no fault of your own.
Well, no, to go with your analogy, I missed my connection because the plane just decided to leave.
It left early.
No, it just left.
It didn't stop. It
didn't.
Kind of came. It flew down and then almost landed on the runway, and then was like, "No, I got plenty of fuel."
Off the runway, and it was like, "Nope, just gonna keep going." So
that's interesting. That's even worse.
So okay, if I'm gonna put some partial blame on myself, I was in the midst of taking a snap to send to Nick because I had just finished saying, "Man, I hope my bus comes," and then as I sent that, it was rounding the corner. So I'm like, hey, I'll take another quick picture and be like, oh, look at what came. But as I like finished taking the picture, I was like kind of leaning up against the bus stop. And I guess it didn't look like I was intending on catching the bus. I just was hanging out at the bus stop at 12:30 in the morning. And it decided to just keep driving. It slowed down like 2 kilometers an hour from what it was going. And then just kind of, and it's like, okay.
Well,
so I sprinted after it. And I was 10 feet behind the bus sprinting, and it still didn't stop. And I'm pretty sure the bus driver was able to see me because
he was just done with the evening. That's what you're pretty sure happened.
That was my interpretation of the events.
This is the last run of the night, and there is someone standing at the bus stop. I'm just gonna go. Just not gonna stop.
Honestly, I would report that. Like it's
there wasn't even an attempt to slow down.
They'd be able to figure out which bus it was if you give enough detail.
What bus it was. Oh, like the actual number and driver.
Yeah.
So okay, so here's the other part. I haven't caught this bus from this place. This was like the Somerset LRT. They kind of incorporated this like bus loop, like a bus loop, right? So like
I think so.
Kind of like a little terminal pull-in area. Next to an LRT station where buses kind of go to pick up and drop people off. So the last time I took that bus to the train station, like about a week after this event happened, it pulled into like this little bus loop thing that they didn't do before. So I'm like, well, maybe I was supposed to catch the bus from this same loop and I just didn't realize it. But I was standing at like a bus shelter, but there's no sign around saying that the bus actually stopped there. So yeah.
At the start of the story, this was on the bus driver. Now it's fully on you.
I think it's shared blame.
I think he should have stopped because you were like flagging him down. But
I wasn't flagging it. Well, after the fact when I was sprinting after him, yeah.
Yeah.
Before I was just chilling, taking a snap.
Once it was clear to him that you were trying to get on his bus, I feel like he should have stopped because it's late and like that's their job is to keep people safe in addition to driving them around. Honestly, but yeah.
It's also like 12:30 on a Friday night. I think people might be a little distracted. Wink. At 12:30.
Wait, what?
At 12:30 on a Saturday morning. I'm saying people might be drunk and not paying attention. But
I was not drunk, and I was entirely paying. Don't give me that look. I was entirely paying attention.
You were at my party, Mike. I'm just saying. I
was socially lubricated. I was not drunk.
Either I had a little much to drink and
you did,
incapable of gauging how much you'd had, or you were a bad friend who wasn't drinking enough at my party. I know which I want to believe.
This feels like a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, it does.
Wait, anyway. Sorry. No, that wasn't an either or. That was a this and. Or, and the or is you're just like 3 sheets to the wind.
I don't know what that means.
You were schmammered.
How's that not the first one?
Your BAC was above 0.08.
Anyway.
Okay, so what I need from this, if you could first of all contact your transit authority in question, and if you could obtain video of the bus stop at the time of the incident, I will need to see how you were running and if you were sprinting was Usain Bolt or QWOP.
On a scale of QWOP to Usain Bolt.
Exactly.
I'd put it as a 6.
Then and only then will I render judgment on what happened here.
Anyway, the whole point of this story is that I was in a position where I had to either walk home from Somerset or find alternative means of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And with my luck of taxis in Calgary, which admittedly was a while, actually, no, not that long ago. I just haven't had good experience with taxis, with them being reliable and showing up. You remember, like, I used to work at Earl's on 16th Ave. And I used to have to walk to my 56th Ave home
Which
very
is far.
regularly after closing. Yeah, it is far. It's like an hour-long walk. But I did that, and it was fine. Whatever. I was young. It was summer. I did not feel like doing that night. So I looked at my options, and I was like, hey, Google Maps is saying it would take 15 minutes to drive to my house with Uber. I will take an Uber. And I did. And it showed up when it was supposed to. It had a nice little marker on the map where the driver was. It said what his name was. And it was great. I had a good experience with it. I was still aware of my surroundings. I was taking details of the inside of the car, of the driver's face, what he was wearing.
Just so we're clear, Uber also has a feature in the app when you're in a ride to be able to share the ride with someone. So it will use your GPS to it'll send a text to someone with a link that'll let them watch where you are to make sure they're actually on the right route.
Oh,
for peace of mind.
That's good to know.
And
this is an Uber X,
knowledge.
So I wasn't as concerned as if it was like a regular Uber.
I don't think there's a big difference, but
my comfort likes to feel like there is a difference. So don't take that from me.
We need to know what kind of car it is, or was. Probably still is.
Ford something.
Okay.
It was a Corolla type sedan.
Okay. Nick is showing us a screenshot of the Snapchat. You were very close to this bus. I feel like you should have stopped.
I was incredibly close to this bus, and it was still going like 50 kilometers an hour at that point.
Nick, can you send me that screenshot so that I can put it in the notes?
I was actually sitting and thinking of how best to share that with you. So yes, I will.
Speaking of, since when is screenshotting snaps an acceptable social convention?
When they're hilarious.
Yeah.
Like,
it has always been.
Nick, you're very quick to the draw on screenshotting snaps, I've noticed.
I really am.
Was that a 1 second snap?
What? No.
Because you can now do
you can set, right.
You can do 10 seconds and you can do infinite. You can just have it available until they close it.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so there's lots of leeway there now. So you can do a 1 second Snapchat. Someone like Nick would have to be super quick on the draw. First of all, to realize it was only going to be there for 1 second, and then to get your fingers, you almost have to be ready to snap to screenshot before you actually open it.
Or have someone else like tap the snap to open it while you have your fingers on the screenshot button. Yeah, that would work. Yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, it was a Corolla type vehicle. Like it wasn't Uber Black, but it wasn't like a 1995 Escort.
Right. The last time that I didn't take an Uber that I needed to get around late at night and was questioning my options was the day before my wedding. And I ended up taking 2 different buses and a taxi because there were so many detours in construction. I took one bus and then it didn't go. It ended up having to take a detour around construction. So I was like, all right, I'm getting off this bus and taking another bus that was at this conjoined stop. And then I took the other bus and it also got detoured because of different construction. And so I ended up about 10 or 15 minutes from home. And I still was like, I could have taken Uber. And I was like, no, I'll just take a taxi. It's literally sitting right there at this taxi stand. It ended up costing me like $15 plus the bus fare. And like the Uber would have been like $19 or something. Right. And it would have taken me honestly a third the time.
Yeah.
And then I always take Uber now if I have that option.
Did anyone take you home that night? I forget.
No, everyone was still there. Didn't I leave at the same time?
Oh, well, no, you didn't. No, you didn't leave early. Because remember we chanted you out at the bar that night.
Yeah. It was very fun. I had to get a reverse ransom note signed by the table next to us saying that I tried to leave and was not allowed to.
Yeah.
That was a good night, though.
Yeah,
Other than the end, the part where I had to take 2 buses and a taxi, and I should have just Ubered. It would have been so much cheaper and faster.
Or got a moped.
It's funny how like my mindset of how things cost money have changed as I got older. Because you're like, I'm not paying someone $20 to drive me home. But I'm like, if I were someone going to go pick someone up and going like using my time and my car and my gas and whatever, and it's like plus the added convenience of just being able to do it whenever I want. Yeah. That seems reasonable. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't know. I do that with a lot of things now. It's like if I were to do this myself, would I expect myself to be paid a certain amount of money, and if so, how much? And it's usually pretty close to what I'd be paying someone else.
Yeah, throw money at the problem.
Exactly.
I've noticed that, like, well, especially at the end of Aussie Rules night, and it was like, I think it was about 2:15 by the time the game was over and I got out of the bar. And I looked at my options getting home and I was like, I want to go to bed soon. So I will take the cab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like, instead of taking a train to then wait to take a bus to then walk another few minutes, I was like, no, I'll just get the cab.
Yeah. For me, the bus is so much of a gamble, I find. Like, you never know if it's even going to show up. Like, I've had times where, like, especially with the smaller routes, that if the bus driver is late or just is sick, it's like that bus doesn't come.
The worst is I was in London, and like London, Ontario. That was the worst place for missed buses. Like in in the summer months, they dropped the one route that I'd always take to about once per 45 minutes or something stupid like that. And like there was one day where they also didn't integrate with Google, because that's the kind of city that London is. So they had their own tracking app, and I watched the bus get closer and closer on the tracking app and then go by my stop on the tracking app. But there was no physical bus that came by at any time.
The bus was spoofing.
Basically, yeah. I think there was a spoofer bus, and I was like, well, I guess I'm walking today. That was also like, I want to say that was post-hip surgery.
There's an app called Transit.
The best app. It might be the only app. Yeah, I would describe it as the only app. It's probably close
to being the only app. And when I had been using it, it was good. And what they have is they have the local transit route schedule built into the app. So they'll show the marker like you're describing, but it will say this is the planned location of the bus, not actual. Like there'll be a certain like indicator if it's an actual location, like if it's getting real updates. But if not, they'll just show where it should be at that time. So that's might have been what you were seeing. If that's what the app was showing, is that it was where it should have been.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the only explanation that I could think of.
Yeah, I would have to look up the old London Transit Commission app.
Yep.
I have wondered sometimes about like whenever there's a bus detour and the bus has to miss stops, how do the people at those stops know that the bus is being detoured?
Usually there's a posting.
Is there always a posting? Like if it's not a permanent thing, if it's like, oh, for one day there's like an accident or something and the bus has to go around.
Oh, yeah, no, not for that. Unless it's like a planned detour for construction, then they wouldn't have. Yeah, but if it's an accident, then they'd never know.
I always wonder if you were just like, if the bus was just driving one block east of you or something or whatever,
you'd be screwed.
Yeah, how would you know? The issues with public transit.
It's true.
I'm really sad that I'm going to have to start taking the bus again once it starts getting cold and snowy here. Unless global warming takes over and we just like skip winter, which would be cool. But
always hope.
Rob, just
it's not going to happen. But
Rob, it's not funny.
No, I'm not saying it's funny. I'm saying it would be interesting because Ottawa is usually one of the coldest capital cities in the world all the time, unless it's technically one of the hottest, which also happens weirdly.
Nick, Rob's just trying to find a silver lining. That's all.
It's true. So
Fine.
to explain, I ride my bike. That's my, by the typical definition of commute, that's my commute. And last spring, when I pulled my bike out, I wrote a blog post about how it's hard to bike to work. Like there's a lot of planning and setup that has to go into making it so that you can bike to work. And at the time, that was because I had been taking the bus. But I'm realizing now that it's not that it takes a lot of effort to bike to work. It's that it takes a lot of effort to change modes of transport to commute. And so what I mean by that is early in the morning this week, it was like between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius when I left for work. And I was like, okay, well, I could bus. Like it's pretty cold. I'm going to be cold if I bike, but I can do it. I can layer up. But I could also just bus and I'd be warm and it would take about the same amount of time. But it would require changing almost everything about my schedule. And I was like, oh, well, it's easier if I just bike because I had been doing it. And honestly, it is because it changes the whole schedule of how I do things. And that by the time I wake up, it completely impacts. Like I get to work. If I woke up at my normal biking time and then ended up busing to work, I would get to work probably about 20 minutes to a half hour later than I would have otherwise. Like I have to get up earlier if I want to bus to work.
Just because of the way the schedule lines up?
The way the schedule lines up, the way I have to, like I could bus to work and then shower at work like I usually do when I bike, but I shower when I am at home and then I catch the bus. So
when you
the way the
bike,
timing works
wait,
out.
so when you bike, you shower at work?
When I bike, I shower at work, yeah. So just the way the timing works out, it's completely different. And so it's much easier for me. Like I'm going to have to undergo, or my schedule is going to have to undergo several changes, like pretty drastic changes when I want to bus to work. And so I'm just like putting it off as long as possible until some major weather event happens that I have to go, okay, it's time to put the bike away.
I found I had a similar experience because at one point I tried to change tires on my bike and I pulled off a nut that I should not have pulled off.
Oh, no.
And so suddenly it was like, guess I'm busing to work for a little while. That's when I worked at the bike camp.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had a similar experience to Rob, except that nobody showered at that job because you were just running around outside all day. So that's a pointless endeavor.
Yeah.
Also, just as an aside, it was really interesting to see people for the first time outside of bike camp, like if we all agreed to go get dinner or something like that, because like nobody dresses nicely to go to bike camp work. Then all of a sudden everyone's dressed nicely, and like especially the girls that have makeup on instead of nothing, and it's like, my God, who are these people?
It's even weirder when you work in a place where everyone wears like uniforms.
Oh
yeah, definitely.
And then you see them like outside of work. It's like, you're a different person.
What are those colors you're wearing? Yeah, no, I found like when you're cycling, it's amazing because you just go from where you are to where you need to be, usually pretty directly. Like you don't even have the abstraction of being in a car and needing to find a parking spot. You can usually just take your bike in with you or lock it right outside the door.
Yeah. And
it's spectacular. And then, changing to public transit is like, okay, well, I have to catch it here, and then it's going to drop me off here. And then I have a couple options in how I'm going to get to my final destination. Like I can walk, I can take another bus that'll get me a little closer, but not that close. And it's just like, bike. That's what I have to say.
When I was
tweet. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, like, on the note of being more direct, like when I was working in the north and living downtown, I was either able to take a bus that was fairly direct, like as direct as you could get. It was like walk 2 blocks, take the bus, walk 5 blocks, and you're there. Or I could bike, and I live pretty much right on a bike path, and my place of employment was more or less right on a bike path as well, like the same bike path. So door to door, I could leave at the same time and get there at the same time, regardless if I took the bike or the bus. Because like Nick, you were saying, when you're taking the bus, you have to give yourself a certain amount of time to like get to this place, get there early enough in case the bus gets there early, right? And then if weather, then it's like, wait, it's going to take longer to actually like whatever. And then, but with the bike, you like walk out your door and you're there, like you're on your way already. You're going full speed of how you need to go. And then same thing, like you don't have to get off the bus, you don't have to start walking. So you're just staying on your bike. So just the way the time worked out, like I'd leave my place, get on my bike. As I was kind of like getting on the bike path out of downtown, I saw the bus go by. And then as I got to my place or as my turn off, I was where I get off the bus was pulling up to the stop. So I was literally like matching exactly where the bus was, which was kind of crazy that it worked out that way. But it was nice knowing that I wasn't losing any time by taking the bike.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting how that works out, I find. And also, just as a side note, I found that on slightly inclement weather days, I was actually a little more optimistic about it because I knew that the bike lanes wouldn't be clogged up with pleasure cruisers. You'd start to recognize the people that you'd pass every day because it's like, you're going to work. You're not just out here having fun.
I keep seeing tweets now. I follow a bunch of people that are kind of bike advocates. And so I keep seeing tweets from the Netherlands just talking about how great bike culture is there. And there's a tweet this weekend. And this is hearsay mostly because I didn't do any in-depth research. I just saw a few tweets. But there's a recent election in the Netherlands, and the prime minister, on his way to discuss forming government with the king of the Netherlands, he biked there to the palace or wherever it was, and they're just showing pictures of this guy in the suit, like the new prime minister, biking into this palace. It was so funny, and it just made me want to live in the Netherlands.
I'm sure JT would get on a bike.
Oh no, not to say that he wouldn't, but he probably wouldn't do it to somewhere he needed. Like he would do it for like not a photo op, but like a press event. Like we had
an kind of thing, or
our Minister of the Environment, when they last fall, I think, sometime shortly after they formed government, she opened up it was like a boat launch or like a little launch on the Rideau Canal, and then her and a few other people canoed or kayaked to Parliament from this place because it like basically takes you straight there, and it technically like that's just political and a photo op and all that, but it actually is very doable. And there are people who commute by skate to work on the Rideau Canal. Like that's a real thing. But it's very interesting how people can use those self-powered commutes.
There was a Ontario Today story. This is like probably about 10 years ago, but they were talking about their story that week was how people got to work, and they actually they stopped at one point and said, so I know we're getting a lot of submissions saying, well, you won't believe this, but I actually canoe to work. There's a surprising number of you who canoe to work. So it's not going to hit the unique commute marker anymore because there are just so many of you.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, like bike lanes in Calgary were a big thing, like hot topic. I feel like they still are for a certain group of people who like to complain about stuff.
I have a relevant song, just heads up.
And the big argument is, why would we disrupt all this traffic for stuff that people don't use, whatever. And they put in these digital and I guess automatic trackers or counters for how many people are using the bike lane. So I assume it's some sort of motion detection thing that triggers an increment of number every time someone goes past it. And they have these posted along the bike route to show how many people have used the bike path that day. Mm-hmm. and it gets up into the hundreds and thousands like pretty quickly, which is pretty impressive. And so basically for anyone who doubts how many people are using the bike paths, like, or the bike lanes, I should say, they can be kind of shown that number and be like, oh, okay, maybe that isn't an argument against bike lanes. Like, there's obviously pros and cons to bike lanes, but I think generally the
Are
pros,
there cons?
well,
Yeah,
technically
it takes out lanes
Yeah.
of traffic.
yeah, technically you're restricting flow of cars, but it's like,
Is that a con?
no, well, Rob, like, put it into
That's a
perspective.
deliberate choice.
You have to acknowledge that is a downside. It's a change from what people are used to.
A
in
change
order
I
to
will agree
accommodate
with.
the bike lane. It's a con for the car drivers. It's not a
Okay.
pro. Less lanes of
Okay.
traffic is not a pro. Okay, so it's a con.
I'm not saying it's a pro.
I'm not saying
neutral.
I'm not saying no. It's not neutral. It's technically a con. How big of a con, and if it outweighs the pros, I would say no. I think
Sure.
the advantages of a bike lane outweigh the restricted or reduced lanes of
Mhm.
traffic. But as far as it's saying, oh, no one uses the bike lanes, or you can't really use that argument for a lot of these
Right.
cases.
The last time that I was at home in Calgary, I commuted to downtown. Well, not commuted, but this is going to be a stupid thing all day. Twice, maybe 3 times, and all the times were by bike, and it was great.
It's
Well, you
so
guys-
good getting in and out of the downtown core.
Your parents live in a pretty
Yeah, it's very
convenient
close.
location. Yeah.
I also don't use any bike infrastructure. Well, I didn't use any bike infrastructure. I use very minimal bike infrastructure because I'm one of the few people that don't really need it. Like, it's to protect vulnerable cyclists, of which most are. But I've been biking since I was like 6 years old on the street, so I bike like a car, and I know how to kind of protect myself better. So, I appreciate it being there, though. Like, I really do when it is necessary.
I have a story about that. Remember we were discussing using earbuds when biking?
Yes.
So I was on my bike going to the grocery store one day, like a couple weeks back. And all of a sudden I was coming up to a corner and I was like, this seems wrong. What's missing here? And I had accidentally left my Bluetooth earbuds in. And so I was listening for sounds of a car coming around a corner that I couldn't see yet. Yeah.
Wait, what was the story? Oh.
No, Rob a few weeks ago asked me what I wasn't hearing with earbuds in. So that's your answer.
So did you or did you not hear the car?
I did not hear, I couldn't hear the difference between like there being a car and not being a car around the corner where I couldn't see them.
Did it
So
impact?
I took out my earbuds and then I could hear a car coming from around the corner. And so I was able to prepare appropriately.
So, Nick, to play rational advocate here.
No, you're the devil's advocate.
When you're in a car, you wouldn't be able to hear that other car coming anyway.
Yeah, but you're also much less likely to be killed if you're in a car. Don't I guess if you're in a car, you're less likely to be killed if you're struck by another car.
We had this discussion before, so I don't think we need to necessarily rehash it entirely. But I thought about that recently because most of the time, like once or twice a week at least, I come within probably 6 inches to a foot of having an altercation with a motor vehicle. And I'm not saying that I follow every traffic law 100% of the time perfectly. Like sometimes if there's no cars around, I won't signal, for instance. Like I stop at red lights and all that, and stop signs.
Oh my gosh.
Robert. So cars, first of all, that's fine. But
aren't signal lights like a suggestion? I don't think they're like a legal requirement to use, are they?
I'm
asking
sure they're
legitimately.
I'm pretty sure they're legal. You need to signal your turn.
I feel like you don't need to.
You're supposed to signal.
You're supposed
turn.
to. Yeah, it's suggested. it's a courtesy. It's not legally required. I don't think you get pulled over and ticketed for not signaling.
I mean, if you cause an altercation as a result
Well,
of not
obviously,
signaling.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you make a completely legal, safe turn but don't signal, I don't think that's breaking the law. Anyway, continue.
So
Rob.
my story relates to the fact that when I get into these close encounters with cars, I don't avoid them because I hear them coming. I avoid them because I'm aware of my surroundings and I'm looking around. Like I've never avoided a collision because I heard something. And I don't expect to. So like when I was biking alongside a car, and again, I'm very aware. Like I watch cars and I see if they're signaling or not. And if a car isn't, like if a car's signaling a right turn and I'm beside it, obviously I'm going to either yield or like make sure I'm fully visible and ahead of it by the time it gets there. But in this case, it wasn't signaling, but I had an inkling that it was going to turn without signaling, even though I was right beside it on the right.
In the same lane.
Not in the same lane, like in the beside it. Like I guess effectively the same lane, but yeah, in the place where bikes typically bike.
Right.
And that's so if I had been further behind it, I usually will look and then go around it on the left as it's turning right. But in this case, I was literally right beside it, thinking, okay, well, this guy, there's like a 50-50 chance this guy's going to turn. And so I'm watching, like I didn't slow down until he started to turn right. And I'm like, okay, I was right. He's going to turn and I'm going to get hit unless I like e-brake. And so I did and avoided it. But it was like, I could very easily see that if someone doesn't have protected infrastructure and they haven't been doing it for as long as I have, that's how right hooks happen. Like it's so common. There's a name for it in biking.
Right. Now, this area that you're in, or this situation, like you didn't have a marked bike lane, right?
No.
So in heavy traffic, I think vehicles are still supposed to give like a full lane width to bikes.
A meter is the standard.
Yeah.
When passing, but even while driving, like along, just in general?
1 meter. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna say like the car should have been giving you, or just cars around you should have been giving you a full bike lit, but like full lane width. But if that's not the law, then
no, it's usually a meter.
Okay.
A meter from like they should be a meter from you, and you are allowed to take a lane if you feel the conditions make it.
Like if you just take the lane in the middle, like don't give room for a car to be beside you. Because if I were you, well, maybe I wouldn't do that. I feel like I'd want to do that, to just take my lane.
If I'm in heavy traffic downtown, and especially if I'm coming up to some sort of 4-way stop, I just merge with traffic because I'm not slowing anybody down, and I can't deal with. Well, I don't want to be right hooked.
Right. So I will beat a car in acceleration every time because they just have too much inertia. But so the only time that a car will ever outpace me is once it gets up past my maximum speed. So if we're in traffic and it's any more than that, the only time I will go and go alongside is if like either the traffic's going faster than me and it's just going to be slowly passing me, or if the traffic is stopped and there's room, and like that's when being on a bike is so freeing because you can just like change everybody's mind. In my mind, that's what I'm doing. I'm changing everybody's mind as they see me go by. They're like, "Oh, I could have been biking today."
Actually, they probably just say, "Oh, effing bikes that are breaking the law."
That is probably what they say.
I don't know if it's just an Ontario thing, but apparently at least motorcycles, and so I assume bikes as well, are legally allowed to go between lanes as long as it's safe to do so. They don't have to.
Is that legally allowed?
Yeah. At least that's what I'm pretty sure it was cited.
I think this is a case where you can say, I don't believe that, but I don't know enough about bikes to dispute it.
No, bikes definitely can definitely go along the right side.
Not between lanes though.
We also call that a death wish.
Why is that a death wish?
It's fine, Rob.
No, but if the traffic is stopped, like I'm only on very rare occasions going to go
between. Going to get
between.
cheesed and murder you.
Rob, you'd be a very good courier downtown.
Rob would be the best courier.
Actually, that was another thing that happened this week. So
I bought a fixie and decided to learn how to do track stands. And
I got a side bag.
I can basically, we talked about this at one point, but I could basically do track stands. Like I can do a cheap version of a track stand just on a regular bike. It's not, the only thing I can't do is go backwards to like compensate balance wise.
so what are you doing if you're not going backwards?
I'm just going for, like I'm doing
You're just going very
track
slowly
cycling.
forwards.
Like I'm going, very slowly forwards, as slowly
It's
as
not
possible.
a track stand.
No, like a track stand is when you're going forward very slowly, so slowly that you actually stop and then balance.
No, I've seen people who are not moving at all doing a track stand.
That's what I mean. So if you're moving very, very slowly and then you stop moving, that's doing a track stand. And I can do that on my bike. I can't do it for like 30 seconds, but I can do it for like 3 or 4 seconds without really even thinking about it.
Okay.
Would that not be considered a track stand in the same way?
I don't know that we're talking about the same thing.
If I'm not moving
Rob's trying
forward,
to win on pedantry, as he always does with every single argument.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, if we're looking at the word this way,
I mean, what is stopping but just going slowly to the point of not moving?
am I wrong?
like I've had people when I was at bike camp and we hosted like this bike day that they were doing in Wildwood. There was a guy who came up and just like stopped his bike and just stayed on the pedals, not moving at all, forwards or backwards, just maintaining balance at will.
Yeah.
Until I admitted that I was impressed. I
See,
would call that a track stand.
You would.
Yes.
Okay, so what I was doing is a very short version of that, because if I said, "Oh, I can do this I can do this all day, Nick, watch me," and then immediately put my foot down, like while I was up, I'm still technically doing it.
Yeah, so I can technically do a track stand too.
There you go.
I can sit for like a non-zero amount of time before putting my foot down.
Right. So I'm saying I can also do it for non-zero amount, but the time.
I think we can all do track stands. Mike, I think you could do a track stand. You just have to try.
It's the length of time.
I always do track stands.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
there's
you can do it
there's
for a
an
few
instant
seconds,
there's an instant where when I get on my bike and I'm not moving yet, I'm doing a track stand.
Yes. It's short to the point of being almost not worth mentioning.
Almost.
So what I'm saying is, in traffic, it is actually useful to me because you do lose a fair bit of momentum putting your foot down. Like you lose a fair bit of, I guess, impulse is more like you lose the ability to just go.
Yes.
Although I feel like when if you are actually not moving, doing an actual track stand like we're describing, it is actually a little bit harder to get started again. I'd almost rather have my foot down.
This sounds like
I'm
the
just
argument
for the sake of balance.
You have not. No.
This sounds like the argument that someone makes to a cop when they get a ticket at a 4-way stop and be like, "That was a rolling stop." It's like, no, I definitely stopped. It was very short, almost to the point of not worth mentioning, but I totally stopped.
Did I tell you guys my theory of how stops should actually be measured? They shouldn't be. No, honestly, like this is separate from track stand issues.
I believe you. I believe you have a theory on this.
I don't think first of all, I don't think bikes should have to come to a complete stop. Cars, I don't think should have to come to a complete stop either. But I think there is a certain momentum threshold you should have to meet before being able to go again. I don't know how you enforce, like there's no reasonable way to enforce that without like computer chip in every car detecting this. But bikes are able to go a lot faster and safely navigate like a 4-way stop, for instance, than a car is. And a car doesn't need to come to a complete stop. There's just no way of enforcing how slow you actually need to go before you keep going.
You just make a roundabout.
Well, that too.
And like what you're describing for a bike is the Idaho stop law, I think.
Yeah.
I usually get the state wrong. Also, if we're admitting felonies, I
wouldn't say that.
Not felonies. I definitely practice the Idaho stop law if there aren't any cars around.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, technically, if I was practicing it with cars around, I would just stop, which you wouldn't know the difference.
What they could do is like, you know how they'll have, I don't know if they have these in Ottawa, but they have traffic lights that only apply to cars. Like if it says stop except for transit. So they'll kind of be like an advanced screen for transit, but transit's allowed to like run the red kind of. So you could have a similar thing for bikes, but at like stop signs, they're treated as yields for bikes. But I don't know how that would work if you're like engaging with other cars.
Yeah.
Because if a bike and a car come to a stop sign at the same time, then technically the right of way rule should apply. But if it's a yield for the bike, then the bike should be able to go. Like I think that would cause too much chaos.
Yeah, it's tricky. The other thing that I've like having now, before I biked a lot and I barely drove ever. Now that I drive more, the other thing about cars is that you're like 3 feet back of the front of where your car is, so you can see a lot less. So as I'm coming up to a stop on my bike, I'm right at the level. Basically, I'm like 6 inches or a foot back of where my front tire is, and I can see much more of the intersection than you can when you're pulling up in a car. So you can much more quickly get to the point where you can judge that an intersection is safe and kind of just keep going. And then if there is something there, you can stop on a dime much more quickly too, because you have less momentum.
Yeah. Well, I think like you said, like you're just more ready to stop when you're on a bike.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a car, you have to think 10 seconds ahead almost. Like, okay, if there is a car coming, how much time do I need to beat it or go and then safely stop if something with a bike, it's like I'll go and I'll stop if I need to, kind of.
Yeah. There's also the thing where I don't know if this is just an Ottawa thing. I definitely notice it more here. But that drivers will often incorrectly yield at 4-ways to bikes.
Yes,
they're like,
that happens everywhere.
Go.
It happened a lot in Belleville.
I was like, stop! I'm waiting for you. Go, and then I will continue.
Yeah.
The worst is if you get into a Canadian standoff about it, and I'm like, no, my foot's down. Just please go. They're like, no, dear, you're on a bicycle. You go ahead. It's like, God damn it. We've now held up everybody.
They do that with jaywalkers in Calgary all the time too.
Yeah. They don't do that with jaywalkers here, but with bikes, it definitely happens.
Yeah. It's like, I don't do it as much anymore because I'm a responsible adult. But when I tried to jaywalk in my younger days, it's like, just let me find my gap and I'll go. You don't have to stop for me because no one else is going to stop and you're just going to get hit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was the worst. I hate driving in Edmonton so much, in case I hadn't told you guys this week. But one of my first times driving in Edmonton, we were coming up this hill going north, I think. And we're driving along this, like it's almost borderline highway because there's no sidewalk on either side and there's no median. Anyway, so I'm driving up this hill and then these kids like come up to the side and just put their arms out like this. And I'm like, what the fuck is that kid doing? And then they just start walking into the stream like, oh, Jesus, no.
So it's not so much like, please stop for me, as it is like, I'm coming
Hey,
in 2 seconds.
Me and a bunch of other asshole kids are coming out into the street now. Darwinism be damned. We're chancing it.
That's yeah. That sounds like almost like a parkway. Was it like park on both sides? Because I know like right near my parents' house in Calgary, there's a road like that where it makes sense that there should be a crosswalk or something there, but there isn't, and it's just park on both sides, like in Confederation Park.
There's park on one side anyway.
Okay. But yeah, I would often jaywalk there because it's like there should be a stool cross here.
That's fine to jaywalk if you're not like disrupting traffic.
Yeah. One with the force and the force is with me, whatever it is from Star Wars. Like, I'm going for it.
Yep.
So I have to ask, Mike, did we cover your how we commute question adequately or at all?
It wasn't really a question. It was an interesting discussion because it was my first experience with Uber, kind of doing it myself in a position where I actually kind of needed it. And then naturally it turned into a bike discussion, which I'm fine with. It's good. Now, Nick.
I'm using public transit a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I've always supported LRT expansion, but having taken it during rush hour in Calgary, I will never, ever, ever, ever question the necessity for more trains all the time, more cars on every train, more trains in general, more train lines. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's astounding. Like, I've heard the statistics on how many people it carries every day, and I was like, I mean, I'm all in favor for it, but that seems high. And then I actually used it. I was like, not high at all. Entirely reasonable estimate.
When they're so reliable, like especially in like bad weather, like I don't think I rarely hear of trains aside from like flooding, which is the only thing they're kind of hindered by. But otherwise, like they pretty much run the same schedule all the time, regardless of weather, which is
whether the weather is hot or whether the weather is cold.
The nice thing about the
icy
trains,
or snowy or whatever.
Neither rain nor sleet nor snow will keep this train from its appointed rounds.
Every 15 minutes, like even if it's snowing really, really hard, every 15 minutes there's a train that comes by and clears the tracks. So you can't, it's never going to be covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mike, if you like that, you should go check out the TTC. It's magnificent.
Toronto Train Commission?
Transit Commission.
What does that do?
Nick, I'm an Albertan.
Is that
we hate Toronto, so just be aware.
Is that the New York subway clone wannabe thing?
What are you even saying? It's the Toronto train and bus, and I assume you're talking about the Toronto.
There's also streetcars.
I don't know. We were talking about LRT, and he said that the Toronto one is good. So is that the underground? Is that an underground train?
Sorry. Yes. The subway. Subway.
Can it be called the subway? I'm pretty sure that's a New York thing.
Do you like? What would you describe the Montreal one as?
Isn't that the metro?
Underground train.
Okay. What about the London Underground?
The tube.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Toronto has a subway around downtown, but once you get out into the godforsaken regions of the 905, they're above ground. But
right.
Well, they're called GO trains.
No, they're not.
What? There is one though.
There are subways. Yes, there are GO trains, Rob.
Okay, good.
But there are also subways that go above ground after a certain point.
Right.
So why is the Toronto one especially good or comparatively good?
The coverage and the density of trains. Also, it's really cool when you're going around a curve because they connect all the trains so that you can freely walk from end to end. And so when you go through a curve, you can see the rest of the train kind of curve, and you can't see all the way to the end anymore.
Like the bendy buses here?
Yeah. But 4 of those and much longer.
Since I've been an adult, I've gone to New York and Chicago, and those cities both have really nice transit systems. I think Chicago's is the best one I've seen, just because it seems to cover all the lines converge downtown on this little loop, and then they just split off and go everywhere.
Right.
And it's all really organized, and they come very often, and there's also buses to supplement each of them. It was very nice.
To me, a good transit system is one where I don't have to do too much work to plan my route. I want to know what routes I have to take and where to get off at, but I just have to worry about if I'm getting there at the right time and how long wait, plus or minus 5 to 10 minutes. Once I get wherever, it's I just have to get there and wait half an hour for my next bus.
Right.
To me, that's a good transit system.
So Nick, I want to hear about your recent phone plan thing because you've been talking about buying a phone for a while now, and you seem to have an update.
It's imminent. I'm going either Galaxy S8 or Pixel 2, and I'm leaning towards the Pixel 2.
Wow. That's an unreleased phone, Nick.
I know, and I recently had a mishap with this guy, as you can see.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there are spider webs. I went to slip my phone into my bag, and it did not slip into my bag. It slipped to the floor. It's the Trans-Canada building too, so like everything's marble. Marble is very dense.
Yes.
I'm glad it wasn't a result of your disability.
What does that even mean?
So I told Mike how I'm actually, which way is it? I'm unable to bend my thumb like down without my index finger also pulling in. Like to the point where if I hold my index finger, I can't bend my thumb down. And Mike doesn't believe me. But it makes it difficult to hold phones because I'll hold my hand up just to demonstrate if I need to go to the near corner of the phone screen, my hand kind of like, he's like, oh, you're going to grab something. It's like, nope, that's not happening. But it makes the phone situation quite precarious.
Yeah, that seems like a real thing. You should get that checked out.
Have I mentioned how hilarious you both are? Why would I choose to lie about something like that?
That it just like I understand that the body is weird and like brain wiring is something we can't really understand, but that seems like the kind of thing where those neural pathways are confused. Like there's one neural pathway that connects both, and it seems like you should be able to like train yourself to split them. It's very useful to have, like, you basically don't have an opposable finger system.
No, the thumb does oppose. Like,
well, I mean, but the finger also has to.
Yeah, they do oppose. They just won't fire independently of one another.
Nick, if you are shooting a finger gun, you're gonna miss every time.
We actually had this conversation in Ottawa. It's like I was also when I had to wear like a bite plane for whatever reason. They said, "Oh, I bet you're a hit with the ladies."
Oh man.
Also, nobody has laughter more infectious than Mike.
It's true. It's very true. All right.
So yeah, so I've been asking around, like, what do you guys think of the Galaxy S8 or someone who has a Pixel? It's like, what do you think of the Pixel? And I'm hoping that one day one person will say, man, this phone was crap. I'm never getting this brand again. And then I could be like, okay, I think the choice is obvious. But no, like I ask people, oh, how do you like your Galaxy? Like any Galaxy version. They're like, it's a great phone. It stood up really well. I'm really impressed by it. Damn it. Okay. As someone with a Pixel, hey, how do you like your Pixel? Oh, it's a great phone. It's just tremendous. I have nothing but good things to say about it. Damn it.
So, as far as the comparison between the two goes, I'd probably go with the Pixel if it were me, just because it's from Google, like literally, and it doesn't have a bunch of the Samsung comparative crap on it.
I've been thinking about the bloatware. I will miss these headphones specifically because this is what I use for talking to people on the phone because it has the little dangly mic there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have trouble hearing the phone half the time when it's just pressed up against my ear. But
I wouldn't be able to use that with one
3.5 millimeter audio.
Yeah, it doesn't have.
The Pixel doesn't?
Yeah, no.
Why am I not hearing about this?
The Pixel 2 doesn't. They sell a dongle.
Oh.
Because iPhone already did that, and so everyone got their rage out with the iPhone.
Well, Sony had a phone that also didn't have the jack,
but wait, there is a dongle I could use?
There's a
Oh, yeah.
dongle you could use. I don't know if it does microphone as well or if it just does the audio. I
Okay.
have not looked into it.
I would that would solve all my problems and all my reservations about going Pixel. But I like that the Pixel ends up giving you the storage space for your photos in original definition. And I
Until
also
2020.
details.
No,
But
you should think about that.
okay. So details. By 2020, hopefully I'll be making enough money where it doesn't matter. And I can
That's
finally
okay.
pay for drive
I'll
storage.
allow it.
It's
But-
literally like a couple bucks a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Literally.
I'm a poor boy, Mike.
Like 20
I have
cents.
to go
a
to
day.
I have to go to free movies with free popcorn because it's the only way I can afford to do it. But yeah, and also like I like that it sounds like with Pixel anyway, Google's optimized it to drop processes that are just eating into your phone's performance, which I've also had issues with.
Yep. Samsung's not as bad anymore with bloatware. Like they were pretty notorious for having that, but they've toned it down a little
Do-
bit. There's still just a couple different things that like you can't really remove apps and processes for.
I would worry about my phone overheating if there were too many bloatware apps. Like some of
you?
those phones can get really hot.
I heard.
Yeah.
They fixed that. The third or fourth time around they fixed it.
Have they though? Have they? Rob, do you have anything to say or are you just off doing something else?
Well, so I was looking up. I want to see if it actually, if either of the dongles for the iPhone or for like Android phones, like USB-C headphone thing, would actually allow microphone audio to pass through as well. And I'm still looking it up.
I mean, I assume if the dumb plug can do it, like a dongle should be able to handle that.
I would think so as well, but you never actually know.
I
with these.
could be surprised because technology.
No, Nick, are you
Right.
entirely opposed to an iPhone?
Yes.
Like 100% opposed?
I'm not getting an iPhone.
Why?
He can't go into Apple stores.
It's true. I'm on a streak.
You can get iPhones at Best Buy. Don't need to
That's
go
the
into
thing that's
Apple
holding
store.
him back. That he can't go into the store.
No, I'm not buying an iPhone.
Why? Like I've heard this before. This whole I'm not buying one, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like, do you have a reason aside from
Sorry.
you're not buying one?
I feel you pay an unnecessary premium for the shiny factor.
You're not going to like to hear this, Nick, but the Pixel 2 is super expensive.
I know. I've come to accept
Okay.
that.
And
But
shiny.
it's done by my chosen church of technology, which is Google. And the iPhone, Apple church of technology, a bunch of heretics.
Mm.
They took the beautiful gift of freedom and Linux and perverted and distorted it.
No, I agree that you're paying a premium for shininess,
Yeah.
but you're also getting a very high performing product with that price. So it's not. It's
Great.
not.
I
It's
also
not.
like Google Maps, so there's that.
They have Google Maps on iOS too.
I heard there were problems, and I haven't checked into the news ever since.
Wait, you with
It's
Apple Maps?
Apple Maps, yes, not Google Maps. Like you
Oh,
literally
dude.
download the Google Maps app on iOS.
Oh, okay.
Every Google product you can have on iOS. Well, okay, I won't say every because I don't. I'm sure it's not exhaustive, but the main ones that I'd ever care about are all on iOS and work exactly the same.
Can you use the two-phase Google authentication app on iPhone?
I do.
Authenticator.
Okay. Interesting.
You can use Google Authenticator. There's an app. You can also get through there's a Google search app similar to the like default Google search on Android that lets you get those push notifications directly. Like it is two-factor authentication that it comes to the phone, but they're not push notifications. They're like, what's the best way to describe it? Like they just show up when you log in on a new device. It says a little notification comes up on my phone, says trying to sign in, and then I go and it says, do you want to allow this device to sign in? And then I say yes, but it's not really.
Can I move my icons around to suit my preference?
Yes.
Other than
the only thing you can't do, that was weird. I thought I froze for a sec because everyone stopped talking. The only thing you can't do is, so Android has the app drawer and iOS doesn't have that. So if you want to have some semblance of an app drawer, you have to create like a folder for all your apps and then put the ones on the home screen that you want. And there's no widgets in the Android sense either. So if those are two large priorities for you, high priorities for you, that'd be worth considering. But for a lot of people, that's not. So, so for me, I do enjoy having my various home screen widgets.
Just to be clear, there is, you can move icons around wherever you want, but there is gravity in iOS. So that each page, there's a gravitational force coming from the, or I guess a weight coming from the top left of the screen. So you can put icons in any order you want, but they're gonna be pushed towards the top left. So for instance, so the top left is gonna be the first spot that's filled. The next one is
blasphemers.
To the right of it, to the right of it, to the right of it, and then it goes down to the next row. So they're in order left to right like a book.
That's dumb.
You can't just have an icon free floating.
Why would they let you do that?
Because they don't understand freedom like we do, Mike.
Well, it seems like a really dumb thing to enforce.
Yeah. It's
like,
not.
Can you think of a reason aside from just iOS devices all behaving the same? There's
no good reason. I would think it's just a holdout and it's not high priority to add. I can't think of a good reason to not have it.
It's like a lot of work to allow icons to do that. It seems like more work to restrict them, but
yeah. Anyway. I'm sure they have their reasons and I could rationalize them, but I don't care to because I think it's pretty stupid too.
From the outset, their whole goal was to have a consistent iOS experience across people's devices. So that you didn't look at one device and be like, oh, what kind of phone is that? That looks all weird. They at least all had some semblance of consistency, which they're originally starting to move away from. But this seems like a really weird thing to keep restrictive.
In practice, it doesn't really make any kind of difference, but I could see it coming from Android.
Like I've seen some pretty cool like home screen stuff with wallpapers that had various graphics and stuff on them.
Well, yeah.
And you arrange your icons in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, and that isn't always top left to bottom right.
Right. As long as you have all of them or full rows, it's virtually indistinguishable. But it is a weird limitation.
So Nick, to come back to your thing, it sounds like you're a bit more open to Apple, maybe, knowing that you can keep your Google services and tie-ins.
In all but principle.
And that's fine. That's a valid reason, I guess. I think you're cheating yourself a bit by not at least being open to it, but
yeah, absolutely.
Teach his own. Your Pogo game will increase a lot.
Yes.
My which?
Pogo.
That's okay.
By about a factor of 10, I would say.
Yeah, it's true.
Honestly, it's that
much. A lot of XP.
Well, not like that.
Kind of.
I'll get level 40 in no time.
So my lack of opinion so far on this Samsung versus...
It's not Samsung,
HTCs?
Rob.
HTC?
Android?
Samsung versus Pixel.
Oh, between the two phones you talk about, sure.
My lack of opinion is mostly that I think they're both fine. Like I reviewed the S8, so I had it for about 3 weeks.
Was the review? Now I have an iPhone. This is not an iPhone. So when I ask my iPhone to do things, it does it this way. But this phone does it okay. Not iPhone-ly, but
no, that was just that tablet one.
Oh, okay.
The S8, they're both very they're both modern smartphones. There's nothing there's nothing really stopping you from either one of them.
And that's what I keep hearing.
The Pixel will get Android updates faster, and it won't have the bloatware. And well, it might have some, but it would be from a carrier or from like if you buy it in a store, who knows what you're going to get installed on it. Other than that, like if you like the look of one more, go with that. But they're both going to be around $900 or $1,000 unless you get them on contract, and they're both going to be like very good phones. The only reason that anyone would pick one over the other is if they already have one of them and they like it, or if they had one of the two in the past and they really didn't like it for some specific reason. There's nothing else setting them super far apart.
Mm-hmm.
One reason to go with the S8 would be the ability to tie into Samsung's other services and devices. Like they've got a really good ecosystem for their own products.
They have a full ecosystem. Do they have a good ecosystem?
Compared to other Android platforms, which don't have any.
It's full, but is it good?
It's good if you're an Android. It's not as good as Apple or even remotely good.
I'm not trying to compare Apple. Like, I consider Apple's ecosystem to be pretty complete and relatively good. I wouldn't say it's great. Like I use Google's instead. Google's ecosystem is really good and I would say mostly complete. Samsung, like they have like S Health and S Voice and all this stuff, but is it actually good?
I'm thinking a lot of like hardware ecosystem as well. Like Samsung intentionally makes other stuff that behave really nicely with their Samsung products. They'll work with non-Samsung, but not remotely to the full ability. Just their smartwatches is one place, and then they have a bunch of other Samsung peripherals that tie in really nicely with their phones. Mm-hmm. So if you ever think that you might want to get some of those devices, then it might be worth having the Samsung phone. And I don't think you're losing too much by having the Samsung over the Pixel 2, aside from the updates and potential added bloatware on Samsung. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a trade-off, but like I haven't found that I'm missing out on, like these days the Android updates are not game-changing, like not the same way they were back in like the Kit Kat to Lollipop to Marshmallow.
Right.
But anyway, that'd be my approach to it. And having a Samsung phone, and having a Samsung smartwatch, I'd probably look at Samsung phones as an upgrade before looking at others, just because I have the smartwatch already.
Okay. We do have, Kaya has a Samsung Smart TV, but that
does not do the phone part. But
I recently fought with it, and I'm unimpressed by all the smart TV things it does.
Right. Yeah, they're not really related.
It's a fine television, but yeah.
I'm thinking more mobile stuff, but smart TVs is its own thing. I see smart TVs as a Netflix box, because that's what I use them for.
Yeah. Well, we also use YouTube, but it's constantly crashing on YouTube.
Oh.
Like it doesn't freeze, but it gets like 40 seconds into a video, which is long enough for you to think, okay, maybe it's got this. And then it just stops loading.
Huh.
And then you wait a couple more minutes and like, there was an error, and I don't know what to do anymore. So
no, you're definitely better off with a Chromecast and using that for your smart needs.
Anyway. Yeah, that's where I am with that. Tried to rent a movie last night, like legally and everything. Well, I tried on Samsung, and because they have the Cineplex Odeon app, and I thought, like if I can just do it this way, like maybe it'll be worth the extra couple bucks. And it was not. Like I hit the button to search, and it was just like. And then I hit home, and it was like, okay, I'm back home. And then I tried to search again, and it gave me the rotating little, like pinwheel. It's like, cool. This isn't working at all. And so I saved a couple bucks, rented it through Google Movies, and plugged into the computer because
Right.
that computer actually works.
The Cineplex ones you can do on browser as well, I believe, and plug your computer in or on mobile and do the
Oh
same
yeah,
thing.
but I'm not paying the extra money
Right.
Yeah.
if
Right.
I can't just integrate it. Yeah.
We actually also rented a movie last night through our TV, but it was
Wow.
only because this is through Bell. So every so often, every like 3 months or so, Bell will send us an email saying, have a complimentary movie on us. And so they'll let you rent a movie, and then they say they will credit you within 6 to 8 weeks. Like credit will show up on your bill. And so we're like, all right, we had people over, and so we're like, okay, well, there's a movie we want to see. It's here. It's $6, and we'll get a credit for it. And like it was fine, but I would not pay $6 to rent a movie just because it's on my TV.
Right.
Like that's too much. I would pay like $3 or $4, but
So, Rob, it's actually funny because we were talking about this before the show, before we started recording, about Maria's like, hey, we should start renting movies like on the TV, like new
Yeah.
movies. And it changes when your schedule and ability to go out is restricted.
Yeah.
And then you see the value in renting a movie at home.
Mhm.
So that's where we're at now. And it's like, oh, that's actually not a bad idea. Like, there's some new movies out that may or may not make it to Netflix.
Right.
And, just as like a kind of nice little thing, you get your snacks and whatever, and you watch your movie, and
Mhm.
it's right there in the comfort of your own home. So,
And I do
Well,
like my popcorn better than the Cineplex
yeah,
popcorn.
exactly.
Right. The only, I mean, that's entirely true, and like I totally get it. That the issue that I have with doing it on a regular basis, if it's going to cost that much, is that there's enough stuff on the subscription services we already have, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon Prime or Crave TV or whatever it is. There's enough stuff that we already pay for or that's included in our package that we don't need to go pay for another thing. Like we'll always be able to
Rob
find
just
something.
became a dad. Dad, can we watch this thing? No. You have Netflix and Amazon Prime and Crave. You can find something to
No.
watch on there, but I want to watch this one.
That-
No.
That's not what he's doing though,
You know
because
how
he's
much
saying
money I pay for these other services?
if there's a movie he wants to see in theaters, he'll go to the theater and watch it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas,
Oh, I see.
right. But like I and a lot of other people don't have that option.
Mhm.
Right.
That's
Because by the
fair.
time you get a chance to go see it, it's probably out of theaters already.
I could see myself once we get to like the point that Mike's describing where it's like, okay, we're not going to go out and I want to watch this particular movie and it's available to rent, and I'm not going to wait until it goes on Netflix because then I'll probably never watch it. If you just have like, it's not, it used to be about, oh, I don't want to spend the $6. Now I'm like, $6 for a night in to watch a movie. Like, that's fine. That's like $3 an hour. Like, that's great value for entertainment for 4 of us. But there's just other stuff when it's just me, and there's other stuff that I could watch. I'm like, I'd just rather watch that other stuff because then I don't have to deal with spending $6 a week on a movie or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, do you guys want to talk about Pokemon Go in the last 3 minutes?
Rob, you don't have any topics of your own.
Well, this was enough.
That's true.
I knew that Pokemon Go was going to come up in the notes, so I didn't bother adding it.
We're coming on 90 minutes here.
Mm-hmm. The last time we hit 90 minutes was a long time ago.
It's true.
We talked a lot about transportation.
We did.
We did.
Guys, I don't know anything about Generation 3 of Pokemon. I'm going to have to...
Neither do I.
I think what I know is that Trico looks super cool, and that's about it.
Should we...
So,
I want to...
looking forward to Trico. And Swampert is like, it's water and ground, so it's like double weak to Trico.
Quagsmire's water ground as well.
Quagsire?
Sure,
Quagsmire, what
whatever.
did I say? Quagsmire?
I think you said Quagsmire.
The last stage of the water evolution
Right.
is water ground. So like dual weak to grass. What are you doing?
So in the last 3 minutes, now that we have the latest APK mine, when do we think that the Generation 3 is actually the first Pokemon of Generation 3 is gonna actually be available in game.
I hope after abilities are implemented in the gym system, and maybe even status effects.
So a long time from now.
Yes.
Well, good luck with that prediction, Mike. What about you?
I think, well, they'll have an event, and so the event will start that week of or before Halloween, as it was last year, and I think that's when you'll start seeing the introduction of Gen 3. And I think like current speculation is that it'll be the spooky Pokemon first, which I think is a good move.
Yeah.
And they're all fairly irrelevant as far as meta goes, so it's more just Pokedex filling in excitement, which again is good. I think it's, and then you'll probably see similar stuff for, you know, Christmas or just winter festivities. They'll release maybe some Gen 3 Ice Pokemon, and maybe that's what you'll start seeing with these type events is Gen 3 types being released along with it.
Maybe the far north will have a regional.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
There's one of the ones, is it Delibird or Smeargle, that is, people are saying Christmas.
Delibird.
Okay. Maybe
Delibird gives presents. So
yeah.
Okay.
And Smeargle apparently paints eggs, so that could be like an Easter one.
He just paints everything.
Oh, does he? Okay.
You could say paints eggs and make it an Easter thing.
Yeah.
But they have abilities that the move present specifically sounds like it would cause difficulties.
Is it present or present?
Present, because he gives you a present.
But it could be presenting.
Oh my God.
Presenting a present? Yes. Maybe it is the dual present a present.
There's a so this spooky Pokemon thing, like there's a Caterpie. So is it going to be Poison, Dark, and Ghost? Is that
the Caterpie is like on a pumpkin? That's why it's there.
But it's not poison Pokemon.
No, Caterpie's not poison anyway. Weedle is.
No.
Isn't it? Oh, whatever. I don't know these things.
Clearly.
Damn,
you've previously demonstrated your knowledge of types and type advantages, Rob.
That it's zero effectively.
There's precedent.
That's right. Now, the only thing I will say...
President or precedent?
Both. You're the president of precedents.
So what I will say is, I mean, I have a two-phase thing with this. Like, if they give Leech Seed or Giga Drain to Venusaur and actually make it work like Leech Seed and Giga Drain are supposed to work, I'm going to have no TMs left, like, ever. And I'm just going to have to come to terms with that and leave my Venusaur as my specialist wall breaker against Chansey and Snorlax, and probably Slaking, whatever else has, like, loads of HP.
So I know you have to leave right away, but how do you envision those moves working?
Well,
what's your ideal setup?
Leech Seed, I don't know how they would actually implement it. Like, Trainer Tips floated some ideas which seem to make sense. Like, you could say Leech Seed will be absolutely capped at a certain percentage of the HP that can be drained. But Leech Seed does like a 1-to-1 exchange. It knocks off, in the games anyway, it knocks off an eighth of the opponent's hit points and gives that to you. Unless it has the Liquid Ooze ability, in which case it does damage to you. So be aware of that. But Giga Drain, I think it refunds, like, it's 70 base power, and it refunds like a 30% or 50% to you. And so it would be a great wall breaker against high HP types, because you just get the HP right back and you can keep rolling through.
Like, they already have mechanics in the game that charge up things based on stuff dealt, like specifically energy based on damage dealt.
Yeah.
Right? Or just the defender regaining health or regaining energy based on how much damage is taking.
Yeah.
So you could implement something similar to those types of effects where for every damage you deal, you get health back or something like that, right?
That would be great. Because, like, that's how Venusaur evolved in, like, the later gens anyway, it seems. Like, it's meant to keep stealing, like, HP little by little and replenishing itself. It also learns the move Synthesis later, which is weather dependent, but in average conditions, refunds 50% of your HP, which would also be a great charge move. You just Vine Whip until you can synthesize again. That'd be great. You just never have to stop using Venusaur, and that's my ideal end game. Sprouts McGee will be the champion. Like, what are you taking into this raid, Nick? Sprouts McGee against a fire flying type, Moltres? Yeah, sure. It'll probably work. Synthesis.
All right. Well, that's a hard out then.
That would be a good hard out.
It is.
But gentlemen, I have to pee, so I'm going to leave you here. Rob, expect or don't expect a file. I don't actually know. We'll just hope that this is a more reliable network while it's actually plugged in.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
Okay.
Quality's been good today.
Yeah.
Nice. Newer computer. Hard connection.
Hey.
Maybe I should get a new computer next. Anyway. Toodaloo.
All right.
See ya.
You guys.
See ya.